Studio to speak more on the essence of the day is the Director General, National Senior Citizen Center, Dr. Emem Omokaro. DG, thank you for joining us on Panorama today.
Thank you for inviting me.
All right. Let's talk about this year's theme campaign, actually. How do you think this campaign will help protect the older population in Nigeria?
Yes, June 15, every year is set aside to raise awareness, and you do what you know to do, and except you understand an issue, you can identify indicators of what that is, then there's nothing you can do. So raising awareness and mobilizing persons and sensitizing people, bringing in preventive education is one way of getting people to understand the issue and to know to do better. So today being set aside as a day to commemorate Elder Abuse Awareness Day is indeed a day to draw attention, to mobilize stakeholders, because it's everybody's affair, it's everybody's issue. And so you start from identifying the issue, you start with preventive education, and as government, we start with the legal framework, the policy framework, and then developing the programs that will sustainably empower older people and grant them access to those services that, otherwise would make them vulnerable.
Okay.
So, yes.
When we talk about the older population, growing old comes with so much health challenges. There's Alzheimer's, we have dementia, hypertension, and then mobility issues. How do we leverage this campaign? Because many people are not patient with the aged around them. They tend to be impatient with them. So how do we leverage this campaign? Because we all grow old.
Yes, as you had rightly said before, the campaign is not a one-day campaign. As a matter of fact, the campaign is just one aspect, one point in the entire framework, entire system of preventive education, capacity building, and most especially developing the policy and the programs, ensuring that older persons, wherever they are reached, they have access to geriatric social care with the care quality assurance, what the National Senior Citizen Center is doing. Because like you heard, most of these abuses take care within families. Most of the abuses are perpetrated by caregivers. And what we have in Nigeria before all the systems we are trying to put in place was that anybody could care for an older person. Even people who had no clue about what, the situations and peculiar challenges of older people. So because there were no programs, and because there was no regulation, and because older persons really do not have access to information, access to knowing what their rights are, and caregivers really did not have access to being trained, to certify, to be skilled, then all these things made elder abuse very rife. And you know that abuse thrives where you have vulnerability, and where in the midst of that vulnerability you have need. For instance, you have functional decline, and you have need for somebody to take care of your activities of daily living, somebody to take care of your hygiene, somebody to ensure that you eat. And when that person is not in the right frame of mind and is not skilled, and that person suffers from caregiver's burden, then the tendency to shove the older person, to speak in any manner of way, to the older person, that's physical abuse, verbal abuse, all manners of things happen. And where you have an older person who really does not have access to information, maybe an older person who just has to depend on this one person in the family, that person now exercises power. Because of course, elder abuse is when you have people in position of trust, who perpetuate acts, or even, fail to act when they should act.
All right, Doctor, I would like to comment there. I'm happy you mentioned abuses in the family.
Yeah.
Members of the family abusing the aged in the family, the older persons in the family. How do we correct this anomaly? Because Nigerians need to hear this. We have older persons in our families, but unfortunately, some of them are being abused.
First and foremost, Before I go to family, because like I told you, elder abuse can be at a personal level, interpersonal level, the family level, we're talking about the interpersonal level. Elder abuse can also be perpetrated because the systems that should be in place are not in place.
Okay.
So for instance, what NSCC is doing now, where we have developed a national occupational standard in geriatric social care, we have now had, approved training providers who train and then certify these caregivers. We have now developed a national benchmark and, minimum standards to accredit care agencies. And then, so, which means we are now developing a skilled workforce that now can be deployed. That's why I'm appealing to state governments, to partner with NSCC. So we can train the indigenes of states. We can map these communities where these older people are and send and be able to know detailed caregivers, skilled caregivers. In that way, you have brought respite to families. Because when you have a situation where an adult child who is a caregiver is sandwiched between his or her work and sandwiched between taking care of his or her children and then now having the pressure of taking care of maybe one or two elderly parents, you have this caregiver burden, and before you know what's happening, they are taking it out on the older persons. So when the system, the policy, the legislative framework, the programs are now implemented the way they should be, and then that part of that is educating the family members and telling them that they could strengthen their options of caring by either calling a care agency, you show them the options and educate them.
Dr. Emem, I hope we'll have a larger platform to talk about this issue, but I assure you we'll have more time to talk about it on other platforms. I want to thank you so much for your contribution on Panorama today. Thank you so much for coming.
Thank you so much for having me. Thank you
very much.